I I find it interesting the journey that people have in self-storage, and I know mine's kind of crazy. And I wanted to hear about you and how you started in self-storage and where you are now and how people can make that happen in their world. I mean, to hear, see your example. So tell me how you got into self-storage.
Yeah, it's a crazy story of trying to chase my dreams in the music industry and then somehow backing my way
And
into
what
the
did you
job.
do in music?
Yeah, so I have my undergrad in classical guitar performance.
Yeah.
I went to get a master's degree in classical guitar performance. I toured with a lot of bands in my early
Wow.
mid 20s. Tried to do some studio work, and really try to make it as a career musician. I taught,
Yeah.
private lessons, about 40
Yep.
kids, a week, and then, I got my minor in business management. And I was in grad school and I'm looking at all the open positions within the country for like an adjunct guitar professor, which is what I wanted to do.
Right.
And I think there's one posting in some
Exactly.
far off middle of nowhere college, and the pay was really bad. And then I started looking at my student loan debt as it got
Yeah.
bigger and bigger. And so I got a little nervous about how I'm going to start paying that stuff back. And so I went to MSU for a little bit to try to see if I can get a teacher's certification in music
Yeah.
ed. And, well, if I can't teach college, maybe I can teach high school. And I love conducting string orchestra stuff.
Yeah.
And that didn't really pan out for me because you had to be
Yeah.
certified K through 12. And I was in a
Right.
third grade classroom for half the semester with a bunch of sticky kids.
Oh yeah.
And so I go from one of the best conservatories in the world, which is the College Conservatory of Music in University of Cincinnati, to a third grade classroom. And I'm
Oh
like, I
yeah.
can't do this. Like I've gone as
Right.
far as I can. And so I'm moving back home, or moving to Grand Haven. And my mom calls me while I'm in the U-Haul truck with all my stuff. And she's like, hey, listen, I just applied for this office job. I don't know what it is. I can't go to the interview tomorrow because I have some doctor's appointments. But I told them about you, and
It's funny.
they want to see you. And can you they want your resume tonight? Can you send it tonight? I'm like, Ma, like, back off. I get it. I
Yeah.
need a job, right? Like,
But
I
yeah.
get it. Come on, back off. And it was a part-time property manager position for a location in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and it was paying 13 bucks an hour, 3 days a week. And I went for the interview, and I'm like, this kind of makes sense. I like it. And
Yeah.
the company was doubled in size through kind of the recession. And I'm like, well, everything I read is about timing of entering a company and
Yeah.
growth. And yeah, so that's how I got the start. Is
So
I
you're
accepted the part-time job, and then the rest is history. Kind of, I worked my way up through the company, and so yeah, that's the start of the
it
career.
is so weird because I started out a music major in
Yep.
vocal performance and I minored in secondary ed and because I had something to fall back on, right?
Right, exactly. You have to with a musician because you're
And
doing
I
fun
was
things to make
singing
a
with the
living.
Arizona Opera Company when
Yep.
I just was filling in for my mom and dad at their storage retirement job.
Mhm.
And then they hired me. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to be in store. No, no. Mm-mm.
Right,
I
right.
was like, oh no, I want to be an opera singer. I mean, yeah, I is that weird? And how, I mean, I don't, I from sounds like we had a very similar because I mean, I took so many lessons from when I was
Yeah.
10 and I made it to I made they asked me to be in the Met. I tried out and I made it, but my husband didn't want to go to New York. So it's just like what, and then I ended back up in Tucson,
Right.
and then the National Self Storage was there and I'm thinking the
Mhm.
storage job, and I'm like I need a job. Okay, it
Yeah.
just was like flat out I need a job, and that sounds so much like what you did. And
That's
it's a
true.
weird thing, especially when you're creative, but I do believe my creativity and things I've used in this job, plus
Absolutely.
yes,
Yeah,
and
the
performance.
creativity, I think it's the
Yeah.
analytical approach to problems. As a
Yes.
musician, uh, you're analyzing pretty complex scores at times. One of our
Yep.
my grad school class was analyzing 12-tone roll theory, which
Yeah.
is a very complex musical form, which sounds horrible to the ear. But if
Yes.
you look at it mathematically and analyze the score, it's absolutely genius on
Yeah.
what they do. But tonally, it doesn't sound good. But you're analyzing, and a lot of those analytical skills that musicians have
Yes.
are very transferable into the business world. And for me, it worked out very well.
Yeah. That it is amazing, isn't it? That how that really works. And for me, it was more performance
Mhm.
because of, and people have said, "Oh, how can you get up in front of people and talk?" And because I'm not really skinny and everything else either. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I have no problem
Yeah,
because
no
I
issue.
started out young doing it, and it's normal. And plus something about music, I think there's so, I don't know, with my mind too. I do love numbers,
Mhm.
and I understand, and that's why I like auditing. But I can see how, you and I kind of had a lot of similarities in moving up. But so tell us about citizen storage and how
Yeah.
where you are with that now.
Yeah, so we, with the previous firm I was with, I kind of grew up through the company. Oversaw pretty much all the operations for the platform. Saw them go from, I think it was like 16 locations to over 80 locations in a very short period of time, and
Yeah.
I was able to kind of create the operational platform, revenue management systems, and so once we sold everything in 2015-16 to CubeSmart. Heitman, I kind of exited the company and started my own firm in 2016, Citizen Storage. I did some consulting here and there, very small consulting gigs, and then in 2017 bought our first two assets in Michigan, and
Yeah.
then constantly we're looking for equity partners and decide to kind of grow and looking to expand our third party management system.
Yeah.
Now we have 8 properties in Memphis, Tennessee, so we're at 10
Yeah.
locations and looking to continue to grow. And so it's an exciting time, and the performance of both portfolios, the ones in Michigan
Yeah.
and Memphis, it's just through the roof, and couldn't be happier with
Yeah.
what we're doing. And
I had a
yeah, go ahead.
similar thing to you there too, because I started out with National Self Storage, and then well, we had a difficult time. We over leveraged all of our stores.
Yeah.
And so they had 19 of us got laid off at the same time.
Oh wow.
I mean, that's, and
Wow.
yeah, it was a lot. And that, really changed I mean, but it was, it was the time. It was, we really did over, and I was like, because some of their stores, we had to be over 100% to be making our debt service.
Right.
I'm like, it was like, how is this possible? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not even doable. But then, they've come back, and they're back again, but not in full force like they were before.
Sure.
But I did, and then I started Skill Check, and then I started a management company. And when I got a divorce, we had 36 stores, and then we sold them to StoreQuest.
Gotcha.
So, but that whole thing, building and developing, getting all of that, but and learning from early on, it's kind of cool. But then when you go out on your own, I think what you've done with Citizen is just make it your own, and it's more fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because you really have it's fun, but it's extremely nerve-wracking too, right?
Yes.
You get to control your destiny, but you also get to control your destiny.
Yeah.
Like whether
But
you
your
feel it,
flexibility is better than
uh,
some of the huge companies, right?
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
mean, this is
The
this is what I would
decisions you
say
make, yeah, I was
about,
gonna say the decisions you can make are very quick.
yes,
There's not a committee you have to go to.
right.
You can react to the market in a very fast way, and and I think being very nimble, even
Mhm.
at a small company versus a large company, if you build that into your operational procedures and standards, you can be nimble at a very
Right.
large portfolio, but you have to start when you're at a small portfolio, and how you react and can take that culture and
Yes.
continue that culture throughout your growth pattern. So
Yeah. I
100%.
think there may not be, I can think of a few companies that are like that, that have really kept the touch with their managers and their employees at the site level. And Ballard's one of them. I mean,
Yep, absolutely.
she's amazing at what she does and how they continually keep working on manager driven things and how knowing how that makes the whole place more successful.
Oh yeah, and I'm a big believer in that too. I
Mm,
mean, we're going through, and maybe instead of going through, continuously improving
yeah.
our training programs.
Yeah.
And I think there's an incredible importance to put time, effort, and money into training staff,
Yeah.
and coming up with this again standard procedures,
Mhm.
tools, resources to give to your team to make their jobs enjoyable, but also give them a say as well. So we always, the top down approach, I'm not a fan of. I like full inclusiveness
Yeah.
of all levels of the field. So when we go to create our training platform, we look at it as two different buckets. One is launch training, which is somebody who just came on board, and then there's sustainment training.
Mm.
And then so we then develop out those two different branches within our organization, but we don't just rely on, hey, this is what I want you to do. We want to make sure our managers are involved in the training too. So we look at
Mhm.
our top performers, we bring them in. There's a program we do called the Sherpa Climber program, where the Sherpa is the expert, right? And the climber
Mhm.
is the person who needs work, or is what we call opportunity for improvement, as
Yep.
opposed to
Yep.
saying, hey, you're doing this
You're
wrong.
crappy.
Yeah. Obviously it's a little switch of verbiage, but
Right.
opportunity for improvement, I think, is
Yes.
absolutely what it is. And
Yeah.
so we look at that as we're identifying our top performer, whether it's somebody on collections, somebody auctions, maybe it's sales, and then they're that Sherpa for that quarter, and then they are able to identify the lower performer ones and are able to help them climb up to
Yeah.
where we really want them to be. So again, it's all inclusive from the bottom top. It's definitely not top down with
Yeah.
the way we
That's
we approach it.
that's really good. The other thing I like about that is, and it's something that I've known is that storage properties have personalities. They're customer
Absolutely.
based food, right? So I have put the wrong person in stores before. Now I make sure I look for the personality that's going to go with the store. And even when we were hiring for other people, I said, "What? Where is the store?" And tell me about the clientele. And because it does take, and I've moved people around because I've put them in the wrong place, or they've said, "Hey, we're so tired of this. We want that." And then some, and it's hard to get that
we
right.
we just went through that at one of our properties. So we actually swapped two of our property managers uh, on locations, and one of them was performing really well, the other one probably wasn't. And so we took that high performer and put it at one of our more important locations, and the other person at the other one. And all of a sudden, both locations are now performing to the level that we want them to. So the one where we really needed to, the great manager was able to step in, take that property on. It's a little bit more tougher
Mhm.
location, tougher market, tougher clientele.
Customers. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
collections are higher there. And then the other location, the manager were maybe they were overwhelmed at that larger property, are now flourishing at the smaller location. And so it's absolutely a play of, hey, maybe we did put somebody at the wrong location, but we're going to give them an opportunity to really try to come back and
Yeah.
make it worthwhile at the newest location. So absolutely, again, I think from a manager standpoint, we have such a weight on our shoulders
Mhm.
when we hire somebody.
Yep.
And to me, I take that extremely seriously. When
Too.
we give somebody a job, it still gives we're providing a livelihood for them because they're earning the money, but we're also giving them that opportunity. But if we're not giving them training, the tools, resources, and
Mhm.
the environment to succeed in, that's our fault.
Right.
That's their fault. And so we always look at those things prior to making any type of decision on an employee, whether or not they're a good fit for us or not. So
Yeah.
we take a lot of responsibility in that.
Peter, I have had some people that like implemented our skill check phone shopping stuff. And so we have the owner that gets the information. And then he said, you know what, I'm really going to stop your service. You guys aren't doing so well. This is not the first time I've heard this, right? And
Sure.
then I said, well, what did the manager say about there? And he said, oh, I've never shared it with the manager. Like what?
Wow, that's crazy.
It is
And
weird, isn't it?
I would say to that, like having that feedback is so So
Yes.
essential. And I always tell the story about again, kind of going back to my musical background. But in grad school, we had a class called Performance and Repertoire, and we had 4 grad students that were in the guitar program, and we met every Tuesday and Thursday for 2 hours. And what we had to do in that class is each grad student had 30 minutes. We'd come into class, we wouldn't talk to each other. We'd take our guitars out of the case and wait for our turn. And we had to play 30 minutes of new music. We could have the sheet music in front of us, it could be memorized, but it was
Yes.
recorded, video
Yeah.
recorded. And so we all go up there, we play our music, end it. And on Thursday, we then watch our performance back of the 30 minutes prior, and the feedback that we were able to get, because we critiqued all performances, we had critiques, and we had to self-critique ourselves as
Right.
well. And one of the things I noticed about myself and everyone else did is when I played, I made these really weird faces, like it looked like I was chewing gum most of the time. I'm like,
Right.
like I didn't know it, like I
Right.
had
Right.
no clue until you actually see that
See it.
feedback. And I think that with your guys' services, that is so important that they hear themselves back, and then they see the
Yes.
critique and the grade on it and have an opportunity to improve. And one of the things we do at our company is called a Call of the Month program, where it's a very multi-tiered process, that nuance, that there's a lot of benefit out of it. So one of the things that our managers are required to do is listen to all their lead calls.
Mhm.
And if they have a great call, they save that recording to submit for the Call of the Month program. And the goal is that they pick their best
Yes.
call. And again, it's not like their worst call that maybe
Right.
they pull out of bed, on the wrong side of the bed, or they
Yeah.
had issues walking in. It's an opportunity for them to shine and to brag about what they're doing.
Right.
And they have to submit that to their supervisor by a certain day of the following month. And then the supervisor then goes off the criteria, which we have a bullet point criteria. To be in the top, you have to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And then the district manager picks the top 4 and then sends it back out to the crew and say, hey, out of these 4 calls, what do you think is the best call? And then it's a peer-to-peer recognition
Right.
program
That's
where
awesome.
they hear it, but they hear 4 great calls every single month,
I
right?
love that.
And so then the person who wins, we give them a gift card, and they get that recognition between their peers, which always feels good, in my opinion.
Yes.
Also, recognition from top down that you're doing a great job, you're doing what you're supposed to do, and this sounds great. And it also helps the team. It creates that
Right.
sales culture environment that we really, really want. That helps out the tenant or customer. So, but
And
then
it's
on
not
the
like
flip
you're
side,
singling them out for doing
no,
something bad, or and you're
absolutely not.
and then they have to pick their own.
That's right.
That's another issue that, and sometimes, I and this is back to music. I've listened to some things and my kids are like, "Oh, this is your best song." And I'm like, "Really?" That I wouldn't have said that,
Right.
because it wasn't the most difficult song, or it wasn't the whatever, but they're like, "But your tone, I'm a mezzo soprano, so
Yep.
that there's a certain, if it's too high for me, or,
Yeah.
whatever, it's not going to sound, it's not where my beauty is in my
Mhm.
voice." And finding that and knowing where that is. And I know songs that my daughter had me go to a bar with her just recently. And she said, "Mom, it's a karaoke bar and we
Oh
can
boy.
sing." And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm not in voice. I'm not in voice, right? I'm
Right.
not
Right. Yeah.
practiced." So I'm like, "Oh no, oh no." And I didn't drink at all. So because I didn't want to drink because it'd be even worse, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so then she goes, "Well, let's sing this one." And I was like, "Oh, and it was a Karen Carpenter song." And I thought, "Okay, well, I'll sing it." And so we started singing, and then we went back and forth with our, she would sing a little and I'd sing a little,
Yeah.
and we were done, and we got a standing ovation in the bar, and everybody was
Nice.
clapping. And the bartender, she goes, "That's the best." She goes, "I always wondered where she got her voice, but she got it from her mom." But it's weird, but I was like, "Oh, that was horrible."
Yeah.
To me, it was horrible.
Yeah.
But the bar people were like, "What?" And I said, "Well, I
Yeah.
went to school for music, you know." But
Yeah.
I do think there's something about thinking of all of this, like you're telling to your employees, this is a performance. Like, we're going to listen to our
Absolutely.
performance, and then we're going to, talk about it with each other. There's
Mhm.
so many times that owners want to keep it. "Oh, I don't talk to this one, doesn't know about this one." But when what you're doing is bringing them all together and say, with your music background,
Mhm.
knowing what you did that made you better, I mean,
Absolutely.
watching your face. I mean,
Oh,
sometimes people don't even realize when they're talking to the customer that they've got this blank thing or they've got some snarly looking thing on their face that
right.
says something different than they're saying out of their mouth.
I wish I had video of the calls. I'll say that. The
Yes.
reason why is if you're answering the call and you're sitting down and you're
Yep.
slouched over and you're not smiling, it makes a difference.
It does
If you're
make a difference.
standing up or pacing or you're smiling, it raises the energy of the call and
Yes.
you can hear it through it. And I
Yep.
remember there was a an old employee with my previous company I was with, very monotone, great guy,
Yeah.
kind, caring,
Monotone voice.
monotone voice. And I told him, listen to this. Like, there's so many pauses within the call. It's an awkward silence. And also it's monotone. I'm like, listen to a DJ on the radio. And I'm
Right.
like, I don't want you to go to that extent, but you should practice trying to have inflections in your voice,
And
go up
improve
and
it.
down, have excitement, have withdrawal, like be engaging. And he became one of our best people
Yeah.
on the phone. And it's
That's
really
amazing. That,
self-reflection and then
yeah.
trying to say, hey, here's an example and here's how you are. Let's try to like marry them to, but not go to the extreme. So we were able to really work things through with him, and he became a great
That's
high
amazing.
performing manager. I think
I,
he was converting over at 60, I think 65% on all his leads and just doing an
wow.
excellent job.
That's amazing. One of the things that I always do, and I hire for other people too, like companies will call and say, hire me someone. So that we always do a phone interview first and like 5 questions, like,
Yep.
what days do you want to work? How much do you want for the job? Well, and if they can't blow us away on
Right.
that phone, to me, it's huge because
Yeah.
like if they don't have a good phone voice and they don't impress you on that phone when they think that this isn't really you're just kind of scheduling an appointment, I just figured that's not for us because
You know what my favorite question to ask
what
on the phone one? My first question in any interview, and if anyone's watching this trying to like get a job with us, like this,
they'll know.
here's a hint,
Yeah.
is I just ask, tell me about yourself.
Yes,
And
me too.
if they can't have the gift of gab and take it off and running, I don't know, they're not gonna work out for me. And if they respond back with a question, not gonna work. Like, so if they're
Yes.
saying, well, what do you want to know? Or do you want to know professionally? Or do you want to know personally? I don't care. Like, just like blow me away with your ability to talk and engage with somebody on the phone.
Yes.
And that first question to me is one of the biggest factors in hiring somebody or not for that property manager job.
Peter, I have a famous thing that I tell all the time because I just tell it all the time. But because my staff does the first calling. And so then when this lady came in, I was interviewing and she came in the office and sat down and I said, so tell me something about yourself.
Mhm.
And she goes, what do you want to know? Almost
Oh,
exactly what she said, business or personal.
yep.
And whatever you'd like to tell me. And she goes, well, you choose. I don't, just tell me what it is. I said, you know what? I don't think this is for you.
Yeah, I've done the same.
She
I've ended,
got pissed.
yeah,
She
yeah,
she slammed the door, went going leaving out, and here come all my girls running in,
yeah.
and they're like, what happened? I'm like, who interviewed her? Who did the first interview? And then
Right, right.
this lady, Benjina, she's like, I did, sorry. And
Yeah,
she said, I thought she sounded okay. But she's super nice. She's a super
yeah.
nice lady. But I'm saying, listen, if they cannot impress you with that talking to you on the phone,
Huge.
don't even let them in here because it's waste my time.
Yeah.
And because I'm going to say the fact that you had a person that could actually change,
Mhm.
that says a lot. They wanted their
Yeah,
job, they cared about something, and they had
absolutely.
some enough to say, you know what, I care about this and I want to get better.
Yeah. No,
So
I think
it's
the
huge.
right approach with training and for like I think our tagline is we take property management personal, right? But we take everything that we do very personally,
Yes.
and it's not just a cold static like corporate culture. Like, we
Right.
want you to improve, we want you to get better, and if you do that, our tenants are going to be happier. You're going
Yep.
to be happier. We're going to be more profitable. Our investors are going to be happier. Our clients, who are third-party management clients,
Mhm.
are going to be happier. We treat our clients just like we want to treat our customers. We treat our employees just like we want to treat our
Yep.
customers. And if you're coming from this approach where, hey, I bought a book or a manual on how to do self-storage, or
Right.
I'm thinking about getting in it, and you're coming from a corporate culture where it's just everyone's numbers, it's not going to work.
Yep.
We deal with customers who are going through the most stressful things that anybody has to
Right.
go through in their life. And if we're not a solution or calm within that storm for them,
Yeah.
we're not going to be successful.
Yeah.
And so it's not just a company culture environment that we want or I want to have within my organization. I want that culture to be for our tenants as well, that they feel like
That's right. It's an
they're a part of the
experience.
community, I mean, our name, Citizen Storage, right?
Right.
You want to belong, you want to be part of something, be a citizen. And that has a lot of weight. What does that mean? Are you a good citizen within the community? Do you have responsibilities? Are you charitable? Like things that have so much weight to the name of our organization.
Yes.
I want to
That's neat.
be able to put through the organization and down to the tenant level too. So for us, it's really creating that culture and training and development and support and encouragement of individuals. And, like what you guys do, I think is essential for that because
Mhm.
you're grading them, you're giving them tools. You're not saying, hey, you're horrible at this. You're like,
Right.
hey, here's where you have an opportunity to improve
Mhm.
and then work with them to improve those
And
areas.
we have no axe to grind. We don't know your managers. I mean,
Yeah,
that's to me, that's the beauty of it, where, sometimes if people have done it internally and then it's looked at as like, oh, you wanted me out. And that's not it. I mean, we have nothing to, and you can customize your form and stuff like that. So,
right.
because not every, one likes my style or whatever, but we do whatever people want to do. But I think always for me, training, even in management, has been the thing that I think really set what I do apart from other people, and just
Absolutely.
keeping those employees happy and keeping the customers happy. Because I'm thinking it's all like you say, or it's flowing down in a good way.
Yeah.
Not the, because if my managers get mad, then they're going to treat the customers crappy.
Yeah. And I think that maybe starting from being a part-time property manager
Mm.
and building those relationships with the tenant base uh, really kind of drives the direction of our company for me. I
Yes.
remember this one tenant that I was always really I loved that he came in and made his payment because we always talked about music. He was
Yeah.
like this old school dude who had like a curly mustache.
Yes.
He stored an RV, just kind of more of a rougher dude, and
Yeah.
I just loved talking to that guy. And then all of a sudden, one month he didn't come in and make his payment, and I'm trying to get a hold of him, and then finally heard from his daughter that he passed away.
Oh,
And like I felt it, like I
yes.
felt it, like
Yeah.
a very strong sadness about that because again, I'm a huge believer in building relationships, and people want to do business with people they like, and I want to make
Yes.
sure managers are like that. I don't want somebody in that seat that doesn't want to build relationships, that is
Right.
not a people person, that
Yeah.
doesn't love connection. And I think it all goes back to putting the right person in the right seat, right? And it
Mhm.
goes back to that interview stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah, and
Training.
the idea of, like, I like to put coffee in the stores, in and free, right? And
Yeah.
water free. I want them to come in there and feel like it's an okay place. We just opened a store in Tacoma, and I said to the managers, we need some more with more water in there, because there's like three in there. Like,
Yeah.
I wanted to customers to know that it's free for them to come in and get into,
Sure.
if hang, and it's a nice little place to hang out if they need to. But it's just, I need those people that will enjoy being with others, and not like, oh geez, here comes so and so. Though I have thought that a couple of times in my
It was
search life.
It's funny. We had a property manager who just embodied everything that we wanted, and she was so funny, like just the biggest character personality that you can imagine. And she would see somebody pulling up and parking, and she'd run and grab the customer chair and hide it because she knew
He's
like
gonna sit
the
over there.
person would sit down and
Yeah.
she's going to be busy talking to this person for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And so it was really funny, like, oh no, not this one coming. But
Yeah.
they're but nice enough, still really nice to the customer, but knew that they had a tendency to sit down and just
Yes.
you know I want
I
to.
have hidden behind
Yeah.
the uh counter before.
Right. Well,
Only,
It happens. There's certain people that you
Yeah.
definitely are going to be professional and friendly with, but
Yes.
know that they're gonna sit down and talk and tell you their entire life story. And property managers sometimes become like
Oh yeah.
counselors, or therapists, and
Yeah.
so
And sometimes, I don't mind if my manager's like, well, you take them, I'll go outside and do something else. Cause they know they
yeah,
chit chat with them for an hour.
right,
Right. Or,
right,
and if they're doing something, it's hard, but you get to know how to handle that. I think
absolutely,
I do believe, but the whole idea of, I think there's still, this is how we beat the big companies.
absolutely.
It's just because if you can do this, and that's what I tell certain people. Like they say, well, I'm going to go with, public storage or some, have them manage my properties. I'm like, I'm not saying that they're not going to do, I mean, they're going to have great calls coming in, the number, they're going to, but can they manage, really have happy managers and people? Probably not. The experience isn't going to be like you might have with a smaller company that can actually do this well.
Yeah, and it's not to, yeah, I would agree. I don't think it's to throw the REITs under the bus, right?
No,
I think
no,
one of our taglines, beat the REITs, right? But
right.
I think
Exactly.
the way
Yeah.
we do it is through the culture, through
Yeah.
we have a really great technology stack too
Right.
that we
They're not
utilize.
as flexible.
And
They can't
yeah,
be. When you
yeah,
get as it grows, I mean, and even I've seen it in my own company. We
mhm.
had it was more difficult and more
It
the
is
bigger we got, the harder it was. And even I wasn't as big as some of these. And I know you have to have more rules.
absolutely.
Yeah. It, and
Yeah,
it,
and that's the challenge is as you're
yeah.
a small company, implement everything you possibly can at this stage within
Yes.
your
The
company.
culture.
The culture is
Yep.
standardization, understand where you want to be, have a clear focus, have an understanding of why you do what you do, and then make sure that's implemented, communicated, trained all
Yes.
the way down in systems that can be grown. And it even if you have that stuff, when you get to a larger place as a firm, those are some of your biggest challenges to
Mhm.
keep consistent throughout the organization. And you're going to lose some of that small
Right.
family feel, but you have to know that in preparation of what you're going to
Yeah.
hopefully grow to and make sure you're managing it effectively. So it's definitely probably one of the biggest challenges I think the REITs have. In
Yes.
they try to come up with culture contests, things like that. And they'll do a good job at it, but
Mhm.
it's probably one of their biggest challenges. I think anytime you own your own company,
Mhm.
you know the I think there's many reasons why people do it, but I think the desire to be happy with the work that you do and be able to have an influence on the environment around you. I think
Yeah.
one of my favorite quotes from a movie is from The Departed, where it opens with, I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want the environment to be a product of me,
Me.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love that
That's so
open
true, isn't
line.
it?
You
Or
know,
that's what I feel.
and I think that's why a lot of people get into business and do it themselves. And
Yeah.
it's you're buying the individual and you're buying the what they want that environment to look like. And I agree. I want to be happy. I want the people that work for me to be happy, rewarded, feel appreciative, feel like
Mhm.
they belong to a place that is more than just their number, and
Yeah.
they're expendable. So
It's interesting, Peter, because I think, one of the things I struggle with in life or have struggled, is getting rid of people.
it's tough. It's a tough
But
choice. I've done it many times, but
yeah,
if they're
but
not
I
aligned with
feel like
your
what you just said and about being happy, I've let them go so they can be happy.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? If I know that they're not happy where they're at,
mhm,
and you can tell by the way they treat customers or the things that are happening to them in their life that might not even be about their job.
right.
And just and then I've come to a sort of a peaceful place when letting people go, and just like and I do it so kindly. I try
Yeah.
to, right, that it's just like, well, you know what, yeah, let's just go our ways, and then
Yeah.
good
Well,
luck.
even if you take that same approach too with maybe an employee that was a great employee, and then all of a sudden
Yes.
something traumatic happens in their lives, and they're not happy, and
Right.
they're going through stressful things. And there's some times where maybe they're in a leadership role, and you have to remove that leadership
Right.
responsibilities for them to
Yes.
be happy, because if they're so overwhelmed with what's going on in your daily lives,
Right.
maybe there's a way you can still work with that person, because then maybe they're not performing as well as they used to anymore. It's
Yes.
costing the company money, which
Mhm.
obviously making sure finances are a sole focus
Yep.
of what you do, and making sure that you're profitable, and things are starting to not work out. But if you're able to be creative with how you handle those situations where, like I said, maybe it's a demotion down
Right.
and maybe it's for 6 months, let them clear their head so they can
Yeah.
focus on what they're doing, and then have an opportunity to get back up into that role. And I've done that in the past,
Yeah,
so
me too. And move into smaller stores, because if I have a store that 2,000 units, a whole lot of difference from, one that's
Mhm.
400 or 500 that they could
Absolutely.
ease into, or knowing that the right place for that managers. And I still, man, I think that is a huge thing that sometimes we don't talk about in storage, but the manager has to meet the neighborhood and everything else.
Yeah.
Otherwise, nobody's going to be happy, not your customers, or because I've made a lot of mistakes on that.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Putting them in the wrong place.
That's right. Yeah, I remember, again, it's just right person, right place, and
Yeah.
you can't really judge a book by a cover.
No.
I remember we are taking over a property, and this property had an apartment on site, and it was a little bit older property. And I remember mystery shopping it. I walk up to the office, and I'm to the right of the office. There's a guy without a shirt on, elderly guy, big old belly, drinking beer, smoking cigarettes, just like having a good time, sun tanning out in the parking
He
lot.
wasn't a customer.
He wasn't a customer, and he was the property manager. It was his day off, so
Oh
he's
my God.
enjoying it. Like, obviously, that's his home too, because he lived in the
Right.
apartment. And I'm like thinking, this guy, there's no way we're gonna like keep him. But I talked with him, and I'm willing to give people a shot, and became one of our best property managers. Like,
Yeah.
just people
That's
loved him,
amazing,
and
isn't it?
loved him, and
But they liked his gift of gab
yeah, yeah,
when he had
he's
a shirt on.
right, right,
Yeah.
exactly. And we told him, going forward, let's not do that. Even though that's your apartment, there's
Yeah.
a visual aspect to the property that we want to make sure is
So will
maintained.
you move managers from place to place?
Absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, we just did it at two of our properties in
Mhm.
Memphis, and it's working out great for us.
That's
And I
good.
think it's probably working out great for them too.
Mhm.
So,
And do
we
they
all
normally ask you, or do you see it first?
we see it first
Yeah.
typically. I mean, you can see it in the performance, you can see it in the conversion ratios. When you
Yeah.
listen to the calls, you can hear it in their voice. You can,
Are
I
you
mean,
a report junkie?
oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm very data
Good.
driven, like very numbers guy. Report systems, like I said, and I think a lot of that numbers kind of point to a lot of different things that you can read. You can read
Right.
into, and just like music, you're looking at
Mhm.
notes, and you can, a melody is not written on a sheet of music, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's how you play it. It's the
Yeah.
intonation. It's the crescendos, decrescendos. Everything about it. It can be just notes, but it's
Yeah.
really how you interpret those notes and how you hear it. And so it's kind of how I approach numbers within. I know it's a weird way to talk about P&Ls or look at it
No,
like
I get
reports
it.
from property management systems. Like the numbers jump
Yeah.
out of the page, and they sing a melody to me, and I can interpret it. So
Yeah.
that's
I
the way
want
I.
to tell you a last story before we go, because
Yeah, sure.
I have a baby grand in my house, and I'm horrible at flanks. So I got my right hand's fine, but my left hand does not do
Yeah,
the
yeah,
right thing,
yeah,
which it was a problem in guitar too. I took guitar, and
yeah.
I could. He's like, you're musical, but boy, your fingers on the left hand don't work well. But anyway, so my daughter has a guy she's been singing with, and they've been playing, and he plays the guitar. He can hear a song and play it.
Yep.
So he gets on my piano, and I was in here doing something right in my office, and then this sound in here, because I'll go in and play it a little bit, and it doesn't sound like that.
Right.
But when he sat down there and started playing, I stopped what I was doing, and I went in there, and then I don't know, I just sat there listening to him, because the sound around me, it all made me feel like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And this is what I feel like when storage is going well. I know that's a weird comparison, but when I go to that store and I look at it and it's like, wow, customers happy, managers happy, money's going good, investments excellent. We're gonna this just it that hum,
Yeah.
whatever that is, that nice note that it hits. To me, that's music now. And I
Yeah.
know
I
it's
agree.
so weird for people to think that how could there be music in your store, but it's all those things coming together right.
Yeah.
And it's a good
And
sound
if,
to me.
and if you've been in storage long enough, and you walk into the property, you instantly
I
know. You
know.
instantly know.
Yes.
And it could be things like, is the office cluttered or not?
Right.
Are the hallways dirty? Is there stuff on the
Yes.
ground? Are the doors in the interior caked with dust? Is
Yes.
there, there's all these
It's all
little
those little
things,
things.
and,
Yes.
and you can then get the feel, you can get the
Yep.
vibe, exactly. And also, same thing walking into a property to buy. I know the second I walk onto the property
Yep.
if I'm going to do better or not. And
Right.
it's all those little things that you can't really say this exactly thing
Is
is
it it's
the
all of them together. Isn't
no,
that's to me, that's what
you
I'm
find the
trying to
harmony.
say. You know when you're at a property, this is this sound here or what's going
Yeah,
on here, this music here is not working
yeah.
because it's all of the things.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like a conductor or string orchestra, right?
Yes.
When they're going through it, they can hear maybe
Oh yeah.
the violins are out of tune, or hey, the bass missed like three notes here, and it changes the feel
Feel.
of the entire organization.
Yes.
And or somebody's playing, you know, their sound isn't really fitting the sound of the group, and you can tell,
Yeah.
and you can identify, and people are like, well, how can you hear that this one violin out of
Yes.
15 are playing the wrong note? Well,
Right.
you hear it. So that's
Yes.
the same thing with storage. You can walk into storage, hey, this is out of kilter, this is not in
Right.
harmony with what's going on, and here are the
And
areas.
something's amiss. Right. I mean, and I can kind of look at reports and give me a feel for something. But boy, when I go to the store, it makes a huge difference. But I mean,
I agree.
I can find theft in reports, but and know, how the store is doing. But boy, when I get there and
Yep.
do when like an on-site visit or whatever it is, man, it is, to me, it is like, look, listening to music or all of it, all of that incoming is information coming into my head thinking, okay, well, it's not all working great. Thank you so much because I really liked what you all were doing, and I think hearing what you have to say, it's really impressive what you've done in your career, and I wanted to just spend some time
Appreciate
with you.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work,
yeah,
and it didn't
but
come
you
easy.
love it.
And I
That's
love, for some
awesome.
reason, like self-storage, I love. Like
Yeah,
it's,
me too.
you back your way into something and really kind of fall in love with everything about it.
Yeah.
And that's what happened here.